what do you do if you accidentally remote view your own death? Happy New Year and welcome back to Magic in the Noise.
Happy New Year, everybody. And what do we have lined up today, Sasha?
Today we're going to talk about my NFEs a little bit for the coming year. And I'm going to do the reveal of the mystery target that I had put out a few weeks ago in December.
That should be very exciting to see what everybody came back with and what exactly was the mystery target.
For the financial prediction target that I gave, the target was Bitcoin. And so we're going to look at what everyone saw for Bitcoin's price performance.
It should be exciting considering that Bitcoin has been on a bit of a dive lately. So it would be interesting to see if it is going to come back up soon.
I seem to do really, really well on 1 month candles, but I don't yet know if I do well on 1 year predictions for Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's going to be a challenge, I think. In fact, I don't know how much there is in the community in terms of actual metrics for that sort of thing, meaning I don't think there's many people that actually have done that. And even the ones that do, I don't know if they present the information in a way where empirically we could understand the accuracy. 1 year also is temporally like huge. Yeah, so it makes sense that it would be easier to predict a little bit closer in time.
And I find the 1 month, I think, is the easiest for me and the highest accuracy for me because I think that span of time makes sense for me. Whereas like a 3-day candle, I can make it make sense, but trying to communicate to the data stream, okay, we're only looking for these 3 days, is harder for me because I think in order to communicate that to the data stream, you have to have it well conceptualized for yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point because you're describing how do you actually express this in a way that can be articulated to the data stream, right? So that you can collect the data that's accurate for that time period, right? What you're describing is something that we tend to think, can we nail a specific day? Can we nail a specific week? Can we nail a specific month? This is more of our mindset, but in the community, the general concept of this sort of thing is just kind of a large span of time where it's more open-ended. And so when you try to lock it down to a specific time period, it's interesting what you're saying, because how would you go about that process for you personally in order to put that in a container? You know what I mean? Like, how does that feel? Other than just writing the information on the paper like 1 month, it's like, well, is it just that, or do you have to do something more than that to make it actually accurate, right?
And I find it's easier to try to determine with accuracy when something will happen. Like in our UFO sighting target, I was able to say, okay, when is this sighting going to occur, and get the 3-day span. That was easier than trying to say, give me the closing price for Bitcoin for 3 days from now, or show me the candle that's a 3-day candle. For some reason, I'm still working on getting that accuracy of trying to communicate to the data stream. I'm looking for a 1 week candle. And so I think that that's something as remote viewers, it's good to have little techniques to do these kinds of things.
So just out of curiosity, because what you're describing is sort of 2 levels of this, I think, if I understand correctly. So the UFO is just an event, right, that you're looking for. So it's just a thing that's just sort of there. The financials are, you're trying to hit a point in time. That's one piece. That's just like the UFO. But then you're also trying to quantify a measurement of the financials time, like it's time within time. Like you got 2 aspects. So are you saying that this is the piece that makes it a little bit trickier versus this UFO that's just a singular point in time? Rather than double stacking, is it easier to just kind of have one aspect that you're dealing with?
It's easier to target a moment in time for me at the moment rather than a span of time. So it's easier for me to say, what will the Bitcoin closing price be on Friday, December 13th, rather than say, show me the 3-day candle ending on December 13th. But if I say, show me the 1 month candle, that seems to be easier. Show me the 1 year candle, that one, I don't know yet. I have more confidence in my monthly predictions for things like Bitcoin. This one, my yearly prediction, I don't know if I should be confident or not because I haven't yet established accuracy or lack thereof.
This is how we learn, is over a period of time and assessing these things. So,
and I think what sets us apart is that we try to show accuracy, not just give the impression of accuracy, because there's so many, I think, psychic predictions. Oh, Bitcoin is going to $1 million, or Bitcoin is going to $300,000 this year. But people have been saying that for 6 years, and it has not hit 300,000. And nobody seems to remember, oh yeah, didn't they say that last year and the year before as well? And so for us, for documenting our precision, accuracy, remote viewing, I think as well, we try to focus on the technique. So it's not just that I want my predictions to be accurate and see that every year I'm accurate or not accurate. I want to kind of see what techniques did I apply that gave me the better result. And I think that that allows us to keep learning and keep improving. And that's important, I think, as remote viewers.
Yeah, we're constantly running use cases or validating different changes to techniques. So yeah, 100%. This is one of the things that keeps us continuing to grow. Because if you look at our work over a period of time, if we go back over several years, you'll see that we kind of played around with this in terms of trying to understand it, like in earlier stages. More internally, we were trying to figure this out. Externally, we started to bring some of this out, and you can see that we have more expansion of these things over time. Like you're adding lottery, sports betting, UFO events, financials, right? It's a spectrum of things that we were adding over a period of time, and it's all trying to constantly get towards that, more and more precision. Because why bother with this stuff if you can't have a certain level of precision that you can base choices that you make on?
And I think it's important more and more because we're seeing more and more. I don't know if I want to say this, but as we move into remote viewing being maybe more popular as a community in the mainstream, there are a lot more people coming into the community. And so I think it's more and more important to kind of show the difference between maybe like dime store psychics who are never accurate and nobody notices against remote viewers who have a technique and we apply it and we measure it, we quantify it, we qualify it, we try to find the patterns and try to establish other techniques that support the remote viewing to get better results. So I think that that's increasingly important. So yeah. And so let's get to my results. For Bitcoin, what I saw was I really saw the same chart for a few different financial predictions. I don't know if it's that one of these is coming through so clearly that it's kind of dimming the other ones out. I kind of see something that right now we're around between 86 and 89,000 per Bitcoin. And I see it kind of dropping off in early spring pretty severely. And then a little bit of a recovery in early summer. And then a really low summer, really, really weak, low prices. And then it recovers at the end of the year. So in October, November, I see it recovering. And then I see the price going above what it is now. Oh. And so I'll give you some data about lowest lows and highest highs. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that'd be good. So we can see more clearly the trending that you're indicating.
Okay, so for the highest high, I see it happening maybe 194,000 in the end of 2026. And the lowest low, I see it in early spring, and I see maybe 82.5 to 83,000. And then 194, maybe mid to end November 2026.
Okay, that's good. Meaning like, hey, we're not dropping back to 3,000 or something, right? So that's reasonable.
I do see that 82.5 to 83 late spring, a really quick drop. So it's not gradual. Something happens, There's a quick drop, there's a little bit of recovery, nothing real, it comes back down. And then in November, it goes back up for that high, the 194. So that would be exciting if that happens, but we'll have to see. And we'll have to compare to the data that everyone else submitted.
Yeah, definitely. And also, of course, this is not financial advice. Yeah, it would be interesting to see what the other individuals come back with.
And so first, before we go to their data, do we want to do my gold, silver, oil, and wheat predictions? No, maybe we'll do the other Bitcoin prices predictions first. And then we'll come back to talk about my gold, silver, oil, wheat, and NASDAQ predictions. My lowest confidence is in the NASDAQ because I'm not as interested in it. And so it's harder for me to connect to it, but that's something I have to work on.
So you're saying, because that's one of the things that's kind of interesting. So in your particular case, some of these you might have more confidence with because you feel more connected to them versus others. So Bitcoin is one of the ones you feel more connected to, I would assume.
Yes, I feel most connected to Bitcoin. Oil and wheat, I can connect with them. I can visualize them. I kind of have a sense of what it is that I'm trying to connect to. Whereas the NASDAQ, I don't know what I'm connecting to.
That makes sense because it's more like a diversity, sort of like virtual diversity. So it's like a spectrum, kind of, right? So it makes sense why it would be difficult to kind of like quantify in like a way that's like, oh, I can hold on to that. It's like, that's all this stuff. Like, what is that? I don't know.
And Bitcoin, I know it. I feel it. And I think that's why so far it's been my most accurate predictions are in Bitcoin. But I do want to try to get gold and silver and oil and wheat going. I want to start doing those monthly so that I can get that familiarity with them and start connecting a lot more easily and get higher accuracy.
Yeah, I know on Bitcoin one time, didn't you get within, what was it, $4 or something? And that was like a period of time that was what? Was it a month out?
It was a month out. One of them was within $4. The other one was, I think, a little bit more than $4, but was still in that kind of very close range. And my candle was perfect.
Yeah, that's very cool. All right. So then I guess we'll look at the other individuals for Bitcoin to see if there's correlations.
I put the call out to the public, any remote viewers that wanted to submit. And we received some really good submissions, mostly from the current live stream group of regular participants in our monthly live stream. And so that's exciting to see. So, because we know that they're good remote viewers and their predictions should have some level of accuracy.
Yeah, and just to point out real quick before I forget, is that we're very grateful for everyone who supports us in any different way that they do. This could be through Patreon, through YouTube subscription, through Facebook conversations or likes, that kind of thing. So just, I mean, me personally, I want to say like, hey, to all those folks, like really appreciate your support very much. It helps to encourage us to continue to do more. And we're always thinking about how to bring better quality products and ideas and innovations out into the public in order to hopefully help everybody out to a certain degree.
Definitely, yes.
This one looks like we have a session by John, who's one of the regular live stream individuals who submitted for this target.
And as you can see, they don't know what kind of financial instrument or currency it is. All they know is that it's something to do with financials. So it could be the US dollar, the euro, gold, a cryptocurrency. They don't know yet.
They're using an analogy of a centipede, and they show little circles that are connected together.
Yeah, like a chain for the blockchain. So that's good data.
He comes down, he does his ideogram, and he moves into the data. He's following the trajectory of the movement of the feeling of the currency.
So for the audience, this is our first time looking at this data. Right away, I can see that he has something about backing off and a drop. And so it looks like he's also seeing a sudden change in the price, a sudden drop. So that's interesting. At the top of his page, we see that he has the word deflects and something bouncing off of a surface. I'm wondering if that's the price bouncing off of the resistance level or support level.
That would make sense. What time frame did you have for this target for these folks?
It was for the year.
For the whole year.
I think his wedge is also interesting, a deep dip and then a recovery.
Yeah, it's similar to what you just described with your NFE for this. So he sees this drop. He's got the light bulb golden color. He's got object being cleaned. Interesting. Oh, so somebody's shining something. He thinks maybe this might be gold. Here's the thing that could also be in this case. It could be that he is showing the trajectory for Bitcoin, but it might be that there's a link to gold. Like when Bitcoin dips, he might also be seeing a corollary, whether he realizes it or not, to gold brightening. Maybe gold goes up significantly at the same point where Bitcoin takes a major dip and then bounces.
I do wonder as well, though, is it maybe the object being cleaned? Is he referring to a little bit of money laundering going on in Bitcoin, depending on the price action?
Maybe that could be as well.
And then when it comes down through the surface, that would be breaking through the support level and dropping more than expected. So that would line up with my data, maybe. Drilling a hole into the object. So again, it looks like maybe the price will fall before it recovers.
Fall into a hole, yeah. Let's see, Christmas feel. He's got like a snow globe spinning. He's got, and then below that, he's got the idea of a falls.
And again, it looks like the price kind of coming up to a resistance level and being rejected.
Right. Then he's got a bank and a dictator and
so again, I think that would maybe fit in with price manipulation. So for me, the washing, the object being cleaned, maybe price manipulation here.
He's got, in this kind of chunk right here, he's got a Bitcoin as an AOL. He's got $ and then V. Well, the V was just up on the other page, right? So I don't know if he was intentionally like replicating the dip on the first screen, or if he just had because again, when you do this sort of thing, you may not actually relate this new V to the old V. You might, because the other one's like, oh, the other one was this totally different thing. I don't know without talking to him, but I'm just saying, because you have the idea of money laundering, that could be. The other one is the banks. The U.S. government recently, in the fall of 2025, has officially supported banks to, I think, buy and sell cryptos to people who want to go through the bank. So basically the bank can just deal with it for an American citizen, as an example. So what I'm trying to get to here is the idea that maybe when this dip occurs, it is associated with something to do with the banking changes in the banking industry related to Bitcoin. And maybe it propels it up, right? Maybe that's the point where it bounces off of that because they've made some banking change and then it propels it upward. I don't know. I'm just saying, like, to me, that's one possibility.
He definitely has the bull at the bottom of the page. At some point in the year, he sees the bull market coming back. So that's a nice, hopeful, positive optimism.
Yeah, which does correlate with yours as well. He's got like a slice
And
of the pie.
actually, just his ideogram at the top of this page, that's a little bit like what I have. There's the first initial kind of dip and it stays low, and then there's a recovery close to the end of the year. So even his ideogram actually is similar to my charts.
Yeah, because there's a longer duration here, kind of like it seems a bit longer than this section here where it's slow before it finally starts to come up towards the end. And then he's got a slice of the pie. Or this could also be the whole, right? To me, this also, in a way, he's got kind of a little dot here, and then he's got this point going to the dot, and he's got a circle. So when I think of the hole through the paper with the arrow, I sort of see the same concept, but in like a different visual layered kind of representation. I'm not sure what to make of that beyond that. This is the last page. So move to performance, timeline, January, goes up and then down towards December. Okay. Which is interesting.
Yeah, he has some volatility in the price. He has it going up and then back down again. It's a little bit different. It's the inversion of mine because I have it ending the year on an up, but we'll see. We'll see what comes about.
Well, it is interesting just simply because if you look at the rest of his work, the shape of the V is in the opposite. Like there's sort of the V there that might be a Y. There's the V again. It's all down V's, right? So it's kind of interesting that he flipped it at the end. It's like the opposite. So I'm saying, like, to me, if I look at the analysis of the trending, I would tend to think that the V might be inverted, like you just said. But I guess we'll find out. Okay. I guess I'll find out one way or the other.
That's the nice part about doing these kinds of predictions is that you actually are going to get feedback. So that's good for remote viewing, to actually get real feedback and not just be doing unverifiable targets.
Okay, so this one definitely is Jeff. I know that psychically because I feel his name is in the upper right corner of the paper. So what's your take on this one?
It is a penny and it's a Bitcoin, so I think right away that's good. The shiny reminds me of John's session that we just saw with the washing and making the object shiny. That's an interesting correlation.
That's interesting, right? Yeah. Again, to me, this is what's fascinating, right? I've said it before, remote viewing, you see the cross correlation, but here's something that is not some insanely complex target like an enigma or some wild event or like World War II historical thing where there's like just tons of data, right? This is a very tiny thing in terms of information, and yet both of these people picked up on the same concept of something being like shiny, which is just, to me, it's just like, what? Like what are the odds of that? Like tiny amounts of data they're going to pull on an object that is not super complex, and yet they still get a correlating data. It's pretty wild.
And I think that the shape of his two hands is forming a shape that was similar to one of the curves that we saw in John's session. And again, he's saying June, July, August, hold on. So hold through the weak summer and you'll see the price rise in the winter maybe.
Big ear, listen for the change. Change also can be analogous to penny, like money change. I know he means it differently. I just find it kind of funny. Like there's sort of like a double thing going on there. Yeah, I agree. This shape here is the first part of John's overall chart movement shape. To me, it's the same thing. It's quite interesting. Look at that. 4x.
I do think it's interesting that he has that same kind of low consolidation I had it more in the summer and he has it more in the beginning of the year. And then the price goes up fairly quickly. And I had the same in mine. It goes up really fast. And so I think that that's really interesting as well. A little bit of a dip.
Yeah, and you stated that you saw this happening more at the end of the year. This is what he has. He has it in September, October-ish time frame is when he's seeing this, which is towards the fall, towards the end of the year.
I had it a little bit close to October, November for the rise up. The pattern is similar.
Yeah, definitely. That's pretty awesome.
A bit of a pullback and consolidation. So I think that's it's a nice chart. So we'll see what happens. And I just want to give Jeff a gold star for presentation. This is really nicely presented data.
Right, because we can see it more clearly in terms of because of the graphing helps and the labeling. Cody, I predict this is his sheet because I see his name.
And what does he have to say?
He has sudden explosive is sort of it's enough that he breaks it out as like kind of a primary element.
So that fits in with Jeff's data and with my data of a sudden steep rise later in the year.
Yeah, very good correlations. Feels like it's falling, then bang, upwards, like getting fired out of a cannon.
So he's seeing the same thing. He's seeing the dip and then a quick, sudden rise. And that matches the other data. So that's awesome that we're getting that convergence. It doesn't mean that that's going to happen, but it does mean that the group is converging on a very similar pattern for Bitcoin's price performance for 2026.
And look what he has here, which is the same logical correlations. It's like, first, what happens? There's your floor, and then there's a cannon. So another way to me that would look is a V shape would definitely fit with this analogy, yours as well, the way you kind of talked about in Jeff's. So
yeah, this matches perfectly, right? Beginning of the year, you have a sudden drop and then nothing for a while, consolidation. And then when it takes off, it doesn't stop. It goes to the top. So that's fascinating that we're all getting that data. That's promising. Again, this is not financial advice.
Stock market explosion. Okay. Wow, he's got a cool animal. And he colors stuff. Usually when he colors stuff, it's relevant. Furry tan animal. Looks like a fox. Timeline. Shot out of a cannon.
So is this the bull, the golden bull that's shooting out of the cannon going up, 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 up?
Yeah, that's great observation, Sasha, because it has horn-like shape, right? And we saw John drew the bull, so there's correlation. But he had a golden light bulb, right? So here's more, and he says furry tan, but if you look at this, it's definitely like, sure, it is tan, but there's also a goldish look to it as well. And so the color correlates to what John did. And I don't know, that's just like really interesting. And even not saying this is true, but like John had because again, if I think like, okay, Cody and John are maybe a little bit more aligned because they both have the color gold. And if I look at John's session, he had a V shaped, and you see the nose here is a wedge, just like John's shape, and even the eyes and it are kind of like at an angle. So I'm just saying it's kind of interesting. That's all.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It does seem to be the same kind of motif underlying. And so then these are the significant parts in the timeline that he's seeing.
The first one is the whole year. The second one is just 6 months.
So he's seeing something happen closer to the beginning of the year. And that matches all of our data. Nice.
January 9th through 10th, 20. It's interesting because he flipped it. The other one's the 2025 is on the left. This one, it's on the right. And 26 is on the left, because up here he had it the opposite. So you have to kind of be aware that he just kind of flipped it and he's moving.
That's a really good way if you're feeling unsure or if you're feeling really biased, if you feel like you're guessing based on what you already know rather than feeling the data coming through you. This is a good technique to double check your data. He's doing it one way, and then maybe he feels like my curve is similar and it's not reflecting the data stream, it's just reflecting how my hand wants to move. And so by flipping the chart around, okay, now when I'm feeling it this way, do I still get the same pattern? Does the same part on the line feel important, or does the correlating data feel important? So if you're doing it flipped and both ones give you March, then you know something's happening in March. But if you flip it and now you're 3 months from whatever is happening on this side of the chart, then you know it's just your hand wanting to stop at that point, moving left to right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's the same thing in art. the orientation of the thing that you're trying to draw in order to correct malformed shapes that you're blind to. It's a weird thing. The second you flip it, all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I didn't know that that line was jacked up or whatever. And so I'm saying I see a correlation to that thinking is that by flipping this perspective, it may make it easier to perceive or information that's inaccurate, or to align it in a way where you can correlate both directions and go, oh, okay, this one holds up, right? There's different ways that it could be useful, but yeah, that's interesting.
I think in the book and the tutorial course, drawing on the right side of the brain, one of the techniques that's taught in that is to try to draw something by drawing upside down so that you're not letting your bias put the lines where you think they ought to be. You're actually just drawing where things are because you're drawing it upside down, and the results are actually better. I did the little tutorial when I started remote viewing, and I think most remote viewers are recommended to follow that tutorial, to read that book, because it helps with your drawing, with your sketching.
Yes.
So this is a nice technique that they've taken maybe from that and applied it to timeline and charts. I think that's a good one to incorporate.
So then the next page, he's got energy going up, boom, up and down. This feels crazy.
Crazy.
This goes back to the animal. Cunning, creative, appearance, looks like a fox.
Is the fox symbolic? Yes. Similar appearance, similar behavior.
Patience is important.
And again, that would make sense if there's a really steep dive and the price goes down, hits a new bottom, and stays there for the summer. People are going to have diamond hands not to sell and get out worrying, fearing the worst. It also looks like close to the end of the year, when the price goes up, it doesn't give you a lot of time to buy in. It's going to go up really fast. So that's interesting to think about. Again, this is not financial advice in any way. We're just looking at remote viewing data. We're not giving any advice for financial decisions.
Move to what I'll regret not viewing and describe it. Golden, sparkly. It's got more of a turquoise sort of color, or mint green.
It's the same chart as my chart. It goes down in the early spring, mid-spring, and then it consolidates over the summer.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the summer, it shoots up to new highs. So that's amazing.
Yeah, I agree. And that's that for that one. Good job, Cody.
Good job, Cody. And again, just because the data is converging, it doesn't mean that that's going to happen. That brings us to the end of the Bitcoin predictions from the public target. Well done to everyone who submitted. This was great data, and it's just fun to see the convergence, don't you think?
Yeah, again, time will tell how accurate that information is, but suspicion is that in some form, whatever that form takes, like maybe it takes the form you expect, maybe it takes a form that's completely unexpected, but it's still, like, you can still map it very cleanly onto the result. Like, that would not surprise me at all. It would be very interesting to see the correlation. This is part of what makes remote viewing interesting, is it's a application of the method to create a repeatable result, right? And so you get this kind of consistency stuff that happens.
And also, because it does cross my mind, are they just picking up on my prediction and mirroring it? But I don't think that that's the case for a few reasons. One of them is I didn't spend a lot of time on mine. I didn't try to embed a lot of shininess into it because I didn't want that to happen. So I tried to keep myself kind of separate, and I just kind of did it and then moved on to something else. And also when I tasked it, I did a couple things to kind of break it from myself and my own predictions. But we'll see. We'll see next year in our next year's New Year's live stream. We'll analyze it and see what happened.
The other thing about that's interesting, right? Even if that was the case, let's say it's a failure, like you have a situation that's a failure because everybody piles onto one viewer, right? And it's like, sure, that could happen, right? But let's say that did happen. But that proves that telepathy is real, right? There's this other, it's like, even though you disprove, like you're like, oh, I missed the target. It's like, yeah, but now you just made an argument that telepathy is a real thing, right? So it's like this, like even when you lose, you're still kind of winning if you just look at it from the right perspective, is what I'm trying to say.
You're still proving that psychic abilities are real.
Yeah, in some other form where you're like, oh, okay. But then if that's true, then this is still, the result is still something pretty amazing.
I do find it fascinating that we all have basically the same chart. So we're seeing it. It's going to come down, I think, in late winter, early spring. And it comes down pretty quickly for everyone. And then it does nothing. The summer is going to be hard to hold on to. And then it'll just take off. So it's interesting. And I think me personally, like this is not financial advice, but me personally, if the first half of the year follows the chart, then I think if I were holding Bitcoin in June and July and August and the price was just low and not going anywhere, I think I would maybe be excited to be holding on to it for that big bump at the end of the year.
Oh, that's pretty amazing. Yeah, appreciate everybody who contributed to that. Gave us some interesting things to look forward to. Then we had normal NFEs. Is that correct?
Yes, we did. Before we get into those, I'll share some of my predictions for gold, silver, oil, and wheat.
Right.
And then we can get into group predictions for events that might happen this year. And I'll talk a little bit about what happened when I did mine.
Well, this would be interesting because if you've done gold, and gold appears to be related possibly to their data, and did you do time charts and stuff too at all? Because it might be interesting. Oh, okay. So it'd be interesting to see if it aligns at all with, like where you think Bitcoin's going to go down. Do you see gold going up and that kind of thing, right? It'd be interesting to see what you get.
And I'll probably post my rough sketches into the video if I'm up for that level of editing. But so for gold, what I saw was the price just keeps going up from here. I got this sense of continued parabola, and then it just stays strong. So what I saw is that it keeps going up, 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 up in a pretty steep curve up all the way to April, May, and then May, June, the price kind of levels off. And then there's a little bit of volatility, but nothing significant. It just kind of stays pretty high for the rest of the year. So that was my chart. And then for silver was different. For silver, I saw maybe mid-January. It keeps climbing up, maybe at a faster pace. Because right now it's a little bit of a pullback. And then it goes up. And then four months in, so maybe sometime in April, May, it starts to come down a bit. There's a retracement. But what I got the strong sense of, and I actually wrote it down on my page, was suppression. So the price is going up pretty steadily. And then something is suppressing it. And it comes back down to around the price that it's at now, unfortunately. And then I just had the sense of a really bumpy ride up. So from that point, it does go up to the end of the year, but it's kind of bumpy up and down, up and down, up and down. But I did see the end of the year being the highest point, around November to December being the highest price for silver. So again, this summer being weaker.
So you said that gold starts to hit near its peak around May, is what you said.
Yes.
Which is kind of what these other guys are talking about, the dip, and they see the shiny and the gold. And you were talking about the dip being around March-ish, kind of roughly. So I'm just saying, like, if you're saying gold continues to go up during that time frame, I just feel like that does kind of correlate with what their data was saying, even though they weren't necessarily focus on gold. So that's, I don't know, it's interesting.
Yeah. And I think, if things keep going the way they are in terms of just general markets and global geopolitics, then it does kind of make sense that these kinds of things, the price for Bitcoin, the price for gold, silver, would go up. But it's funny because whatever seems to be happening that brings Bitcoin and silver down, for silver, it's being actively suppressed is what I saw. But for Bitcoin, and we're going to talk about oil in a second, but I see the same for oil dropping. It doesn't seem to happen in the same way for gold. For gold keeps going up despite whatever this event is, but then it levels off. So eventually it's affected and then it stops rising, but it doesn't lose too much ground, a little bit of ground, but not too much. So for oil, I saw a very significant dip. February, I saw a sharp dip down, a really weak summer with just really annoyingly very low volatility. So the price is just kind of inching up really, really, really slowly from about February after the big dip all the way through to maybe October. And then in October, the price recovers. And mid-November to December, I see the price of oil being the strongest it's going to be for the year.
Okay.
For gold or for oil, I try to do what would be the high and the low. For the low, and again, this is my first time doing oil, and so I don't have a confidence level established. But I had 36.64, maybe March, April, and for the high, 217 in November. Just some data. And again, this is more just to record the data that came through so that next year we can look back at this video and kind of assess and see. And then for wheat, Here's why I feel like maybe the data is good, because my other charts are very similar in that something happens in the first quarter-ish of the year, and the summer is low for everything. And then there's a recovery in the latter half of, or the latter quarter of the year, except for gold. For gold, I just saw it keeps going up, 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 and then it levels off and it kind of just hovers. To me, that adds credibility because it means my hand wasn't just making the same pattern again and again. And so
Yeah.
it's informed by the data.
Yeah.
And so my wheat, I have it dropping really fast, really steep in May, and I have it going down to 0. I don't know if there's a shortage of wheat. I think there's a shortage of wheat. I think there's just no wheat to sell, maybe. But you would expect, if that's the case, that the price would go up. So I don't really understand why I have such a fast drop to 0 in May, and then in August, and then all through summer it does nothing, and then in August there's a recovery, and by the end of December 2026 I see the price at it's the highest that it'll be all year. So I have May for the drop, low for the summer, really low for the summer, and then in August it starts to pick up, and in the winter the price is really high for wheat.
So I think, and again, I'm not an expert on any of this stuff. I just get splashed with information. So this is probably completely wrong and probably out of my mind. But basically, and also I haven't had much sleep. But I believe because silver recently has been doing what it's been doing, I believe there's sort of some talk of like exposure on the markets of commodities towards fakery, like, oversubscribed ETFs, all this kind of stuff, paper assets that are tied to silver. All of a sudden they're being exposed as being fraudulent or not being backed. And I'm not saying any of this is quite correct. It's just something I kind of heard. What I'm trying to say is, like, if any of that has any merit whatsoever, the idea of wheat going to 0 could be that effect starts to happen on a broader scale. And then maybe as it's corrected, as the situation, maybe that in turn creates all this sort of like corrective measures that start to occur. You might then see the opposite, where these assets now, because whatever's left, basically, and is real, basically starts to go up, maybe higher than you normally would see it. So I don't know if that quite fits with your data, but I'm just thinking, that's all.
It makes sense for the metals that people realize that paper trading, like if you're holding paper silver, you're holding nothing, that the banks have no actual physical silver to back it up. And so then what you have has no value, because you're not actually holding silver. You're holding a broken promise of an IOU written on a napkin that has nothing behind it. So all these cocktail napkins become worthless. And so you're right that if there's similar kind of funny games being played in things like the wheat market, then if all of that gets exposed, that would drop the bottom out of the market. That's interesting.
But again, we're entertainment and not financial advice. So, and I'm purely speculating based on some random thing I thought I heard somewhere. And I'm just seeing possible correlations to what you're pulling for the data. So I was just asking if that made sense.
That actually makes a lot of sense for the data. So interesting. And so then that brings us to near future event predictions. And before we look at mine, let's look at the group.
Yeah, okay. Let's see.
And so for this one, I invited the live stream regular participants to submit an NFE if they felt like it, if they had time. It's the Christmas holidays. People are busy or people are sick. And so we did get a few submissions, and so we'll share those now.
Okay, so this appears to be Claudia's, and I can tell her writing is very meticulous. I appreciate that. I wish I was this clean when I write. It's very awesome.
Looks like she has some kind of a plane crash for her first near future event prediction.
A small plane hitting a mountain peak, snowy peaks. Pilot can save the plane and the passengers, maybe 4 men, by landing on a snowy platform. Huh, interesting. They will be rescued,
Nice.
Possibly Nepal or Alps.
Well, that's not a terrible story. That's still, they'll be rescued. That's a positive spin on it.
Feels as if the passengers are photographers. So this is where it's useful, because if we, have a bunch of plane crashes in 2026, which of course I don't hope that's not the case, but she's got the idea of specific people on the plane, photographers or people who make documentaries, and it will be one of the most scary things of their life. To me, that's a good specific piece of data to help link it to something that maybe there's dozens of these events around the world, right? It might be a little harder to suss out which one this might be associated with. But if you have photographers on that plane, it's like, wow, okay, yeah, excellent.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you make a vague prediction about, oh, there's going to be a plane crash in 2026 in a mountainous area, it's a bit too vague. Because she added that extra detail, because she dug a little bit deeper, she probed a little bit harder. I think that's often
Right.
what makes the difference between a good remote viewer and a great one, is that ability to say, I need more information that makes this a specific event and not just a vague category of some kind of a plane crash in the mountains. So well done, Claudia.
Yeah, I agree. Next one is she sees an old-fashioned pickup car. It's restored. Paint is important, as if the car now has two colors. It feels as if they invent something to change the color of the car to the mood you are in, 2 or 3 different colors. That's interesting.
It sounds like a programmable color for your car. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
If it hasn't happened yet, and it does happen in the next year, she's got more than enough specific details to qualify that she nailed the target. So this is good. This color scheme programmable aspect is very specific, which is good.
Wonder if it's a Tesla truck.
Yeah, that's interesting. That could be. That would actually make sense, because he would be the first one that does something goofy like that. Or even maybe somebody who's a Tesla fan might, to try to get his attention or whatever, right? They might.
Because
like,
it's
do
strange that
something.
it's a truck, right? As opposed, you'd think a new tech
Right.
would be developed for a fancy car. But the fact that she got a truck makes me think maybe Cybertruck, so maybe Tesla. We'll see.
Okay, this one, she sees a beach shoreline, feels as if it's Europe. Small glass balls are visible like small marbles. The origin is unknown, and it is unknown what these marbles are. The glass feels a bit soft like jelly. It is good news, something positive. She got the AOL of eggs. A certain extinct animal returning. People search on their knees. So she's got people on the beach looking for these balls or these eggs or whatever they are, which is interesting.
That's such a weird one. That one we'll know right away if she's right or wrong, because anything that pops up in the news about something like this, we'll remember.
Yeah, it's too abnormal for a news story. Really interesting. And then she sees a figure covered in bandages, AOL, some kind of mummy, some kind of special burial. Only one is found. High mountains, snow, ice, sudden appearance, ancient, some relics in bandage. Feels Far East, Mongolia, found at an unexpected place. Very interesting for archaeologists. And then this one, which is a big round reservoir as an oil drum.
And it looks metallic, and it looks old, bad maintenance. And then what are these people that she sees beside them? She sees some kind of a accidental chemical reaction, and people have to flee. So she does have some data about the smell of a chemical reaction in an industrial area. So that's curious and very hard to clean up. Maybe more nuclear waste than oil. Or chemical weapons, I guess, because she talks about the chemical smell, chemical reaction. Maybe it's just an industrial accident.
Yeah, it seems pretty much like it's a chemical.
And then what is she seeing here? Vessels and some kind of a water spout popping up.
Which is the power of visuals instead of just words, everybody. As a remote viewer, it's like powerful. She sees an enormous water hose on water. It endangers some big vessel, and it pops up at a spot where there are never water hoses. People connect this to an artificial cause. Something mechanical caused this giant hose. There will be casualties. Cold season like February. That one's like weird enough that it should stand out if it happens. And this is the last one. Big fire in a famous worldwide architectural important building. The shape of the balls on the top are important. The building will be partly damaged and restored. Tourists will be disappointed since it will be closed in 2026, difficult to reach because of the flames.
Good job, Claudia.
Pretty amazing. Okay, so with this one we have clearly Jeff. He's got a loud horn or siren. Actually, a whole bunch of them. Ground zero. Smoke tunnel, man-made exhaust jet, scale across states.
Maybe something happening in the atmosphere?
Cannot believe what you see. Fake Fake, real, fake.
This is interesting because this ties back to what we were talking about with the fake papers that show that you have silver when really there's no actual silver backing it up.
Mm.
Something that conversation I feel like is maybe resonating with this, but I don't know.
It could, because you have what appears to be, not saying that's exactly what this is, he's got math, but bills have presidents' faces on them. So it makes me think a little bit like he's mixing currency with the economics or something
And the pie
together.
symbol. So we saw in John's session, he
Yep.
had an actual pie with a pie
Yep.
slice. And here in Jeff's, we see the symbol for pi. There's probably something there that we should be decoding. But because it's New Year's Day and it's 4 a.m. for me here, we're not going to decode it tonight. But
But
we will
also,
invite the
yeah,
viewers to do so. And yeah, his clock. Yeah, say it.
yeah, John's pie was like, his slice was like at 2 p.m. or something. The
Yes.
fact that he's got a circle with what could be, he's got pi down here, but in a way, his
Very
imagery, because
small.
he's got a V shape here, it's
Yeah.
just off a few degrees from what John drew, which is, I don't know, quite interesting.
Yeah, interesting correlations in the data. And then what's this logo that he has here? What does he have written down underneath?
Under the tent, fake cult, star cult, hex cordinal, brain. I'm not sure what this is.
I think it says music.
Oh, yeah, music.
So music affecting parts of the brain, the central nervous system, a fake cult with an interesting logo. Something to watch out for.
This also kind of looks like pi. It also kind of looks like his tube, like he's marrying multiple elements here in a circle. So I just see, I don't know, it's interesting. I'm not quite sure.
And it's also the pyramid that's on the dollar. So there's kind of a lot of symbols here.
Wedding
Oh,
photographer.
there's a wedding photographer. It
Large
makes me
friar.
think Claudia's photographer's on the plane in the plane crash.
Yeah, interesting. It's very bizarre that they would get a singular detail across their sessions like that.
And there's Claudia's large fire.
Right. Big news events, lots of pictures, celebrity wedding. So in his case, he sees it as a celebrity wedding
Okay.
with a large fire. So slightly different. It's
Yeah.
the context is slightly different, but there are key elements that are similar. Oh, wow. Purple crystal slurry. Oh, tied to batteries. So he's got the idea of maybe new technology with batteries, maybe. Crystal farm. Maybe these aren't batteries, but that's what they look like to me.
Hopefully that's not the chemical reaction accident.
High purity drug. Everybody wants you. Street drug. Asia, Indonesia. Life inject.
Interesting. Weird drugs coming on the market.
Deal with purple crystals. Maybe it's like that movie Lucy.
Or maybe limitless, hopefully.
Yeah. So you got an ice incident, agricultural damage, fruit trees die. So maybe someplace like California is basically kind of what he's getting. Something where it normally doesn't get that level of freezing.
The mini ice age coming. I believe it.
Okay. And then for you, what'd you get?
So I started out getting floods in the south of the US and I stopped because it's just not specific enough. And even if I give you, there's going to be a flood in this month, of course there is. There always is. If you go down to the south of the US, there's always flooding. And so I was like, okay, let's stop and go do something else. And I think that for remote viewers, it's a good thing to yes, the data is coming through. Yes, I could probe for it. But what's the value of telling you that an area of the US that floods every year is going to flood this year at the same time as it usually does, right? There's no value in that. So even though maybe it'll be a really big flood and it'll be on TV. Yeah, but there was a big flood on TV last year and the year before that in the US. It's on every year I see social media posts about big flooding in the US and you see the bird's eye view from the news camera. So I just stopped and said, I don't want to burn my psychic energy on this.
Yeah.
Have you had that kind of experience, David?
Yeah, this is just sort of, I think, people, because I say this, people will probably judge me, but I'm just saying it's people who are more serious about remote viewing versus maybe somebody who's just taking swipes at things, right? Is there anything wrong with either approach? Not necessarily. It's like, what is it you're trying to accomplish, right? So this is, for me, the same thing. If you're going to get a flood, it's like, okay, I better get the states. No. I better get the cities. No. I better get the level of damage. No. I better get the financial impact. It has to be so specific to be useful. Wait. I got to get the exact day, right? It has to be so specific in order to have any kind of real value that it's too It's too much to be
Well, it's
wasting
too much
monkeying around
work
with.
for something like that. It's too much. I don't want to burn my psychic
Right. That's what I'm saying.
energy on something where it's like I could have just picked up the paper from last year, looked at the flood,
Right.
put the same date, the same city. Chances are it's going to be correct for this year, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
And so I skipped that. I was like, okay, I don't care right now about the flooding.
Another way to say this is if AI could remote view it, then it probably is not something that you want to invest energy in.
That's a really good way of putting it. Yeah. So then I said, okay, just show me 3 main events for the year. And of course, the war with Russia came up. And I didn't want to do too much about that. But I see involvement of Belarus. I think maybe Belarus versus Poland somehow. And I find that surprising because that would mean that Belarus is siding with Russia against NATO, against Europe. And that happens in the area in Poland, or Poland is involved. I'm hoping that it's, and I didn't do a lot of, I just kind of did surface, and I'll do a deeper dive into an NFE later this week, but it's just been too rushed. But also because I didn't want to do too much of an NFE about war, because we all know that's coming. And so I'm hoping that it's peace talks, Russia and Europe, that maybe occur in Poland, and maybe Belarus acts as the intermediary, right, host. That would be something nice. But again, I would have to do a deeper dive to find out some of the details. But as soon as I kind of got into it, I was like, oh, I don't really want to describe war, because that's what everybody, the psychics are predicting war with Russia for 2026. So is the news. Like, so are people who have zero psychic ability. But I did see, maybe stuff about Russia and maybe proxy. And so that's why I think maybe the Belarus, Poland, maybe being used as proxies for the EU-Russia war. And then here's a secret truth underneath this, my reason for kind of stopping as well. Because I saw a detonation in early spring, and I was working on a personal NFE for myself a couple weeks ago for the year. And I saw a detonation in early spring. And I also saw data in that NFE about myself, my life, that really shook me and was quite upsetting. And so when I got it in this one, I just didn't really want to go into it here. I want to sort it out in my personal one, how I'm personally affected. And maybe we'll do a live stream about that. What do you do if you accidentally remote view your own death?
That sounds pretty freaky. So you're saying in this, because again, this stuff, Sasha and I have done it for a while, and sometimes you have control over, again, as a tasker, you can have a certain level of control, but when you're trying to predict the future, this is where, a lot of times you don't have a control over exactly what you're looking at, depending on how you do it. So in this particular case, were you trying to get a personal NFE for yourself, or did you happen to be like, hey, I'm doing the normal kind of thing, and then all of a sudden you're like, wait a second, this is like intersecting with me. Is this, did that happen, or was it more intentional?
No, so a few weeks ago, I wanted to get a sense of what I should be investing my time into this year. It's not a remote viewing session because I'm not blind to the target. It's more of a psychic experience. And so I decided, okay, I'm going to sit down and use my remote viewing skills and abilities to have a psychic experience to help me just kind of see what's coming in 2026, what I might expect, what might be the best outcomes that are possible for me, depending on which projects I invest most time into. And so as I was doing this of like, show me the best outcome, like if I make the right choices, if I invest in the right projects, what would those projects be? What does that look like? And as I was doing this, I got data about a detonation in early spring. And then I got data about things that I know for myself are afterlife related. And so then I went into it a little bit deeper. I kind of explored some of the things there, and then I stopped and decided, okay, I'm going to take a few weeks away and then I'll go back to it. And in the interim, I'm thinking maybe it's more that I will be exploring consciousness in ways that take me into access to afterlife data and that kind of thing, because that is one of the things that is happening with my Cozy Rev mirror sessions, is that I'm accessing a whole different realm of information. And so it might just be that, but it was it was quite shocking to me and it kind of rattled me. And because it came with the data about a detonation, so there's a detonation that happens and it looks like it's a major event tied to the war. So then when it came through here, when I was kind of just probing data about the war and I got that same word detonation and I heard it in the same way and it tasted the same and it had the same time, early spring, I just thought, oh, I'm not ready for that right now. I will look at that later when I'm ready to kind of separate myself, because maybe it's not my death, maybe it's my ability to look at that realm. But if I go into it thinking I'm looking at my own death, I'm going to bias the data. And so I need enough time for my emotions to settle and to be able to go into the data.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that's more clear. For me, psychic impressions, like if we want to use like non-remote viewing, basically other stuff that's psychic or spiritually linked, I've had situations where I've had information come to me that's been very accurate about the future. But in those cases, well, it's the same thing. I'm not necessarily looking for it. It just comes to me, right? And then I have to kind of figure it out or deal with it. But because I have a history of that mechanism, so I understand like, hey, this has happened before. And oh my God, that has been correct each time, or mostly correct, right? This is where it's easier for me to if that happens again, it's easier for me to take it more seriously or understand what value to place on that. If it's happening during remote viewing, it makes sense to me that the source intelligence would still express it through whatever means that you have access to. So to me, that it still like plugs in logically with how this would work. But in terms of not previously having experience with this kind of scenario, and whether or not, or even if you have to have enough sampling of those over a long period of time to understand the validity of it, right? And then as you said, with remote viewing, it is very difficult to analyze. So you can sometimes get very good analytic accuracy, but there are many things you have to kind of factor in, right? So I'm just saying it gets really kind of tricky, and you might have to sample, like you might have to, if you use the same tool, now you got to go back and collect more data, right? That's how you kind of like through the analytics and combine with more remote viewing, that's where you kind of narrow it down to like the correct piece of information. So,
and I think anytime you're remote viewing the future, it's very different than remote viewing a target that exists in the present or in the past. It seems to me, people have different beliefs. Some people believe we skip timelines. Some people believe that the future is undetermined. Some people believe that it's fixed. Some people think that the larger events are fixed, but the smaller events around it are fluid or probabilistic. And I don't have a position on that yet, because I've seen a little bit of both sides of it. I've predicted sports scores accurately for games that were later today or tomorrow, and I know nothing about sports. Some of the times I don't even know what the possible range of scores could be, and so I've seen enough of that I know that data existed for me to see in the present moment of the future. But then I've also had data where it feels the same and it turns out to be wrong. So then I wonder, it felt the same. So was it in the moment accurate and then something changed? Was it probabilistic? Or I don't know, was the data stream mistaken about which date I was trying to ask for? So again, there's so much we don't know about remote viewing. Remote viewing has been being done for decades, for 60 years now. And I think it's so shocking how little is understood about it, and the basic primitive tools that we're still using and the primitive approaches. And basically, most remote viewing is just to prove that we're psychic, and it doesn't really go much further than that. And so I think these are things that we're trying to do with Mint, is trying to kind of push this forward and figure these things out. And so for me, that's why when I do future, at this moment, I'm undecided still about how I think it works and what explains the misses. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's again quite, to me, it's quite powerful on many levels, what you just discussed. And at least you have the possibility of a heads up. So you may be able to predetermine some markers to look for prior to the event, right? Again, it'll be hard to know for sure if they're 100% accurate, even if you see them. But I'm saying at least you have some time possibly to kind of manage it as a project, right? So this is something that's kind of interesting in terms of an opportunity. Also interesting because I don't know how many remote viewers actually experience the same thing? Because again, you weren't necessarily looking for that type of thing, right? So this is what I'm saying. It's like, it's probably useful to a degree to talk about it for others to kind of see
Yes.
if your thoughts line up with their thoughts, and or maybe you'll tell them something that they didn't occur to them, and they'll be they'll do something different type of thing, right? So
Yeah, so I'll do a special video about what I saw, how I knew that I was looking at my death. But I don't know if I'll do it on this channel or on my Cozy Red Mirror project. We'll see. I'll let the audience know when that time comes. But moving on, the second main event that I saw was, and this was so weird because I came through Dust Bowl Depression summer. And I know enough about American history that I'm pretty sure the Dust Bowl was during the Great Depression. Okay, so the Dust Bowl Depression summer, famine, hunger, really high food prices, which goes against what I saw with the price of wheat falling through the floor for the summer, right? So again, that might be tied to what you were saying, how like paper contracts mean nothing anymore. And there's food shortages, so there is none to sell. I saw it as being mostly worldwide. So even though it came through as Dust Bowl Depression, which is an American term, I saw it happening worldwide. That leads to unrest, civil strife. I kind of had flashpoints. The China-Taiwan data started to come in, and I kind of shut that down as well because I didn't want to focus on war and conflict. And also, it's so predictable. You don't have to be a remote viewer to kind of know that there's kind of conflict there. But I do want to say that I didn't see a war between China and Taiwan. I saw skirmishes. The word skirmishes came through, battles, but not a full-scale war. But that doesn't mean that China doesn't take Taiwan. It might mean that if it does take Taiwan, it takes it without a huge fight. Or the US is maybe too busy with other things and it doesn't have time to get too involved. I don't really know, but I just don't want to make a whole NFT show about war. So here's the interesting thing, the third point. And this is for you to give me insights on because it's such weird data. AI tech babies.
that's weird.
I saw a blue-eyed baby tech, and it's either AI baby tech or baby AI tech. What does this do? And then I had the data come through printing better genes for gene-enhanced babies with blue-eyed babies. So something about using AI to print a better genome and then using genome dabbling to create better babies, enhanced babies for the rich. So I saw this is like for like Silicon Valley level people. That's weird. So weird that I think it's probably accurate and likely to be seen in the news this year.
Yeah, it could be. I know CRISPR and other gene editing types of technologies have been on the rise for the last several years. The idea of AI, somebody focused currently on that, combining the two, right? And that pops out as a product that is, not, not theoretical, but like they actually have they prove they have the full ability to. I mean, we've already been able to make sheep and stuff like a long time ago, right? So it logically makes sense. And you have a specific detail like the blue eye part. So this is what I'm saying. Like, if it does come out and it is possible and they are starting to do it, they're starting to offer services for this kind of thing, I would not be surprised if they do mention the eyes as, because this is one of those things that is, like giving somebody like super intelligence, like, it might be a bit harder. We're not really sure if that's going to, but like if you change somebody's eye color, that seems a lot more achievable and more likely to be promoted, right? And something that's already I think blue is probably one of the more popular colors that people would want. So I'm just saying, like, logically, there's a lot of things that kind of line up. So yeah, it's interesting.
And I have a feeling that either in the ad for it or in the articles about it, I really see this baby in a diaper with blue eyes that are enhanced blue for the for the picture. And that being the image of these new AI enhanced babies. Yeah, so I thought that was really fun and interesting. And that was a lot better than all the war data. So that's what I'm focusing on and looking to see happen. Not that it's a good thing. I should clarify. I'm not saying that's a good thing, but it's an interesting data point.
Yeah, okay, very cool. Yeah, different.
Thank you, everyone who submitted. And thank you to the audience for joining us to talk about these things. And please do feel free to send in hits. If you see an article that matches anything that we talked about today, send us in because we might miss it.
Yes, that would be great. And yeah, I do appreciate, as Sasha said, everybody who's participated, contributed, and to the audience watching. It's very nice to be able to express this information in a way that is available for people to talk about. It's one of those topics that generally is not easy to find information on. You know what I mean? It's like, you necessarily go to a party, this happens, the conversation's in some back corner with a few people, right? It's like, I'm just saying, it's not easy to have discussions about this topic. And so it's nice to be able to do that.
If you want to keep up to date with what we're doing, feel free to check out our Patreon page at Magic in the Noise. And that's probably the main place we post information about what we're working on, what upcoming projects we have. When I release a new target for public remote viewing for the monthly live streams, that's where you'll find it most consistently.
Very good.
Thank you so much for joining us. We wish you all the best for 2026. Happy New Year.
Yeah, I hope everybody has a fantastic year in 2026. Hope it's better than last year for everybody, and take care.
Cheers.
Bye.